What does it feel like when you're living in a world of unintentionality and default? It feels like chaos. And nobody really thrives in chaos. I mean, maybe really psychopathic people thrive in chaos. I personally don't thrive in chaos. I thrive in structure. And so when things are done in design instead of default, you start to get that structure and intentionality in place. And that's something Disney does really well. And as this quote states, they've learned to be intentional where other organizations might not be intentional. And that's one of the keys to their success. So, what is culture? I think you've all heard that word, but when you hear the word culture, organizational culture, what does that mean? Yeah.
What are the norms of the organization? How do they interact?
What are the norms of the organization? How do they interact with one another? Yeah, that's a definition of culture, kind of the way we do things, right? That's what somebody would say a culture is. A lot of times organizations say, well, culture is about pizza parties, and it's about the nap pods at Google, or it's about having the Zen room, or it's about those perks that you get. Though those things are important, that is only a small portion of what organizational culture is. To Disney, it's something very different. Organizational culture is a set of behaviors and expectations that they have their employees try to obtain. And you can have that designed out, and most organizations don't. So that's why it's really, really important to think about when you're wanting to get the right people in the organization, have you designed out that process? Have you designed that methodology? So can you really get people to behave the way that you want them to? The answer is yes, you can. And Disney has done a very good job of making this happen. The Office is not a good example of that, by the way, just so you know. So I love this quote by George Kalogridis. I want you to look for anything that pops out to you that might be something that you weren't aware of, kind of like a little aha moment, but I'll go ahead and read it. Our casts do what they do because of our culture, a culture in which every person here understands how important, how special a Disney vacation is to each guest family. Guests often refer to their experiences in our parks and resorts as Disney magic. Yet, it's not the magic that makes it work, it's the method. It's a deliberate process that is continuously reinforced by leaders and peers alike, and the result of this is more than a loyal and happy guest, it's a loyal and happy cast as well. Is there anything that pops out to you except for that which I have in yellow? What about experience?
The experience for the team, the cast, the employees, and then the experience for the customer and what they expect and then will receive.
Right. So it's not just the customers that they're building an experience for. It's also the employees. Awesome. Thank you. Is there anything else that kind of pops? Darren, wait for the microphone.
Thank you. I love the first part where it says the cast do what they do because of culture. Like that's the driver.
Yes.
It's the fundamental underlying impetus for the action.
Yes, they do what they do because of the culture that was created. They're not leaving the behaviors to default. They have made sure they put a process and a methodology in place. So that's one of the secrets that I think I've kind of figured out and I've molded together and I want to share with you today. And I'm really, really hoping that today you leave this experience able to take something back to your workplace and do something with it. Even if it's learning how to do things by design instead of default. If you just take that one thing and do something with it, I will be super duper happy. But I'm hoping that these other things that we talk about is something you can take and do something with your business as well. So this is kind of the method that I think I've figured out that Disney does. Now, my team lovingly calls this the Eye of Mordor, and I didn't see it originally, but now I do, and I can't unsee it, and neither will you by the end of this. But essentially, these are the foundational principles that Disney's put in place to design out their culture. Their mission, vision, values, the way they hire, the way they train, and the way they follow up, their coaching cycle. So we're not going to focus a lot on mission, vision, values today. Most of what we're going to talk about is the last three, because I really feel like that's where most organizations miss the mark, is those last three. And as I worked for organizations and worked with coaching and consulting organizations, it's those three things that really is the big gap between what we want to have happen and what actually happens. So if you were to break it down, it kind of looks like this. Does our organization have a clear vision as to what we're trying to accomplish? Do you have detailed core values? Those core values are your behaviors that you expect from your employees. Have you hired to those vision and values? Are you training to the expectations of those vision and values? And do you have an effective coaching cycle in place? Those together will help build what your organizational culture could be. That's how you could design it out. So at ERC Specialists, we have our vision and values. So once again, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on how you build this out. That's like another 4-day workshop. But essentially, we build trust with our customers by providing legendary service and value. That's our main goal. That's our main objective. Knowing that we have kind of a short runway with our business, we know we can't be successful unless we build trust with our current customers to move with us into our pivot. So that's our main objective. We want our employees to help us build trust with our customers with legendary service and value. How do we go about doing that? You go about doing that for us by using understanding, courtesy, dedication, and competence. So those are the 4 key behaviors that we're trying to build up in our organization. You'll see we have some sub-behaviors there. That's just to help really explain clearly and in detail what we expect of our employees. And why that matters is because leaders in an organization have to exemplify the vision and values. If they are not walking, talking, breathing these things, if they're not doing what they expect their employees to do, what's going to happen? Chaos, right? Your employees aren't going to trust you because you're saying, do what I say, not what I do. So you as business leaders have to be the epitome of everything that you're asking your organization to do. So what does that mean with hiring? When it comes to hiring, more often than not, we are hiring people to a skill set. We see people, we're like, yeah, they've got a great skill set. We're going to bring them in, and we're going to have them perform the duties, the tasks that we need them to do. Disney has a different perspective on that. Disney hires to culture, and they train the skill set, which is super interesting. So some suggestions to you. Does your job description reflect your vision and values? Do your interview questions filter culture and not just skill set? And do you have a welcome letter emphasizing cultural expectations? So once again, if you're going to design out the experience for your customers, have you also designed out the experience for people coming into your organization? So this is what it looks like for ERC specialists. This might be a little hard to read, sorry. But most job descriptions have a quick summary of what the company does and jumps right into, this is what we need your skills, or these are the skills that we need. What we've done is we've implanted in there a section that focuses on our core values and our vision, because we want people reading through our job description to either be really excited about what they read about our vision and values or decide that that's not for them. It's a self-filtration process. So we put this into our job description because when we go in to hire people or bring them in for an interview, it's really easy for us to know if somebody's read the job description, because we can ask, why are you excited to work with us? And if they don't know why they're excited, might not be a good fit for us. We want people to know and understand who we are and what we're trying to accomplish. The next part is the interview process. Do you inject your vision and values into your interview process? Most people don't. Most people are asking questions in regard to skill sets, which is fine. But don't be surprised if that person doesn't fit your culture. So we've taken our different core values and we've put questions in there that help filter skill set as well as help filter culture. So a great example is under understanding. That first question is, tell us about an experience that you had with a difficult customer and how you drove it to resolution. So we're trying to find out, does this person know how to deal with customers in difficult situations? We have it under the understanding key because we're looking for, does this person really seek to understand the issues with our customers, or are they just trying to throw a resolution to them to get them to shut up, which a lot of companies do. Disney doesn't. They drive to try to get to the core issue of the problem and solve the problem. That's another customer service training. So many things. So the next 2 parts are where I really feel most companies miss the mark, 100%. People get an offer, they accept an offer, and more often than not, they start their first day of training just showing up to work, right? They know they're supposed to start on X date, so they show up to work without any expectations. So who is designing the expectations for that employee if they have no clue what's going on? They are, right? So they come to work with a certain expectation, and if that expectation's not met, what happens? They get upset. They get frustrated. They have no idea how to be successful in your organization. And so they start to get disgruntled, okay? So the similar thing with onboarding. Design that out. What does that look like? So without even knowing it, Walt Disney was doing this at Disneyland before vision and values was like even a thing. He would send this letter to his new hires saying, hey, we expect these things from you when you come to work for us at Disneyland. And so they came and they had an expectation already in place of what to meet. We are similarly trying to do this at ERC Specialists. We have created a letter. The first page looks very similar to that of Walt. It's very culture-focused. Then after that, we say, hey, in your first 30 days, this is what we expect you to do. These are the benchmarks we want you to hit. So by the time they get in the office, they already have an idea of what we expect of them. So they're not building out their own expectation. And then the next thing that I think most organizations struggle with is training. Most companies do not intentionally train their employees on what they should be doing. So I have a perfect experience of this. I had my expectation from my experience with Disney. I went to my next role with the Utah Jazz, and nobody gave me any expectations. I just showed up on day one. I went and I met with some of the top dogs there, and then I had a nice 3-hour meeting with HR, learning how I could lose my job, right? Those meetings are always fun. And then I got shown to my desk, was given a thick training manual, and was basically told good luck. Okay, let's do this. Yeah, exactly. What's the message that they're sending me without really sending it to me? Like, we're not really invested in your success here. We hope you make it, but that's going to be on you. Not a lot of people can thrive in that kind of situation because you're left to yourself to meet an expectation that you have no idea exists, right? You can't be successful in that. So this is why training matters. So I use this picture in particular because this was actually on the hiring page of custodial at Disneyland for some time. What do you notice about this picture? With the custodian in particular. They're engaging with the customer, right? So if I am wanting to become a custodian at Disneyland and I see this picture, it's going to do one of two things to me. It's either going to get me super duper excited to interact with guests, or I'm going to see that and I'm going to say, I would rather be in the 7th circle of Hades than do what that person is doing right now, right? So this was part of their hiring and onboarding process. So they're filtering people out already. So why training matters. How long do you think it takes a normal custodian to get trained in their role just in a normal organization? What would you guess? What's that?
1 solid day.
1 solid day, right? Hey, you've cleaned toilets at your house, hopefully. You've cleaned sinks. You know how to do the process. Here's the chemicals. This is how they could be harmful. Any guesses on how long it takes to become a custodian in training before they let you on your own at Disneyland? 3 months, 3 weeks? It's 8 weeks. It's an 8-week process. Now, when I first heard that, I was like, you've got to be joking me. There's no way that they invest that much time and energy into a custodian. But they do. Why? Because they want this. Exactly. They have an expected behavior. They understand their custodians are walking, talking customer service agents and not just toilet cleaners. Next time you go to Disney parks, just look for somebody in white. You will see them everywhere because they are. So they intentionally train them to the behavior that they want. A lot of times we don't do that in organizations. We just miss the mark completely, and we get frustrated that our employees aren't hitting benchmarks when we never trained them what benchmarks we expect them to hit. So why training matters? It's an opportunity to set employees up for success with expectations and tools, creates emotional connections to the culture of the organization. So for our new hire training at ERC Specialists, we spend a half a day just on culture. We want them to understand the vision and values and how that fits into everything that they're doing. And then lastly, it gives an opportunity to see what exemplary employees look like. This matters most. Most companies and organizations, when they have somebody come in for training, they just give them to somebody who's there that day because they happen to be there. So they could be getting trained by literally the worst employee you have in the organization. You want to be careful with who you choose as trainers because your trainers are the people you want replicated in your organization. You want your new hires to become those people. So be really careful about who you select as trainers and who's doing the training. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the coaching cycle. A lot of you know coaching cycle, but the fortune is in the follow-up. If you're not doing 2, 4, 6-week check-ins with your new hires to make sure they're meeting your behaviors, they're not going to meet your expectations. But if you do the follow-up, if you're engaged and you're invested, they will become engaged and they will become invested. And if they're just not getting it, then you can invite them out. Disney calls it inviting them to become a permanent customer. I think that's a little sick, if you ask me, but that's what they call it. So you just want to make sure that you are investing the time, effort, and energy to coach them up to what you want them to become. They're not going to be invested in your customers if you're not invested in them as an employee. So once again, just the structure that we use to be success. I want to show you and share a story of what cultural success looks like and what the results are. If you're doing this the right way, your results will come. The revenue will come. Your CSAT scores will come. Things will come. So Cinderella's Castle at Disney World. Has anybody been to Disney World here? Raise your hands, just quick. Okay, so you know Cinderella's Castle. In the main floor, they have the royal table, which is where you can go and you can have dinner with Cinderella. Oh, isn't that wonderful? It's so great. And what happens is when you get into your reservation, the first thing you do is you meet Cinderella, right? So this isn't the little girl this story's about, but what happened was this family made a reservation for 9:00 p.m. They showed up at Cinderella's table. The first thing after they get checked in, it takes about 15 or 20 minutes. They go and they meet Cinderella. Right then and there, does anybody know what happens about 9:20, 9:30 at Disney parks? Fireworks. The fireworks go off. So the first firework happens and the girl gets terrified. Cinderella drops down and she says, "Oh my goodness, princess, are you scared of fireworks too?" Which is a genius customer service tactic, by the way. Another training, another day. But the girl's like, "Yes, fireworks are scary." And she said, "Well, how about this? How about we go outside? I have seen this fireworks show so many times that let's go outside and I'll cover your ears every single time the firework goes off. Are you okay with that?" And she looks at the parents, and the parents are like, yeah. So they go to this private viewing area outside of Cinderella's castle with Cinderella to watch the fireworks. So what are the parents thinking at that point in time? Magical. Take all of my money. Here's my bank account information. Do with it what you will, right? They just had this amazing experience. And they're going to go home and tell their friends about it, and hopefully their friends would want to come get an experience like that too, right? But Cinderella, what would happen if she got back, because she wasn't where she was supposed to be? What if she came back and her manager said, disciplined her for not doing the tasks that she was supposed to be doing? Would Cinderella ever do anything like that ever again? Absolutely not. The magical thing about having culture and having it ingrained in your employees, oh, I hit the wrong button. Sorry, is they can improvise in a way that will drive to your vision. They will be off task, but they will be on purpose. That's where the real magic happens with culture. When you can get your team members to do things that drive purpose without you having to manage every task to get them there. And so when you hire the right people, you train them to the right expectation, and you follow up with them, that's how you get the right organizational culture in your organization. So if you have any additional questions for this leadership nerd, I'll still be here after. I love talking to anything Disney. I actually talked Disney already with a few people. But really why you want to do this and why organizational culture matters and you want to bring in the right people is they then become your best recruiters because they've experienced it, they're exemplifying it, and they know what to look for. And so they will bring in their friends that also exemplify the culture that you're hoping to build. So I hope that was helpful. Yes. Please.
All right, so for probably the past 5 years, if you wanted a job at Amazon, all you had to do was go to their website, look at their published leadership principles, and then in the interview, you would just every single response you gave, it would tie into some leadership principle. It actually was a really easy thing to do, and a lot of people ended up just memorizing these leadership principles and doing that. And then what ended up happening is a lot of people get in that don't actually have those leadership principles. And so you're left in this spot where you can try to still train them, you can still try to mold them into what you want. But do you run into an issue when the company is very forthcoming about what they're expecting, that you get the right answers in the interview, but then...
Absolutely. Nobody bats 100 when it comes to hiring people. Honestly, hiring and interviewing process is a lot like dating online. You get a quick snapshot of what that person might be like, and then you start to date them in real life, and you're like, this isn't the person I thought it was going to be. So what we do and what Disney does as well is you have an introductory period. And in that introductory period, you tell them, hey, these are the expectations we have for you to meet. And if you don't, then this just isn't going to work, and we'll help you find a job somewhere else. And if you set that expectation up front, sometimes people will be smart enough to draw out that. But with any relationship, after a certain amount of time, true colors start coming out. That's where why that coaching cycle is continual. It's not just during training. It's a continual process. And so if you are constantly meeting with your team and setting expectations that they're not meeting, then you can just go ahead and invite them to find a job somewhere else. And that's how you just keep weeding out that sounds really bad, not weeding out. You keep helping people that don't fit in your culture find something else. But you'll never bat 100 when it comes to hiring. But you can, over time, get all the right people in the right seats. Yeah. Great question. Thank you. I've got nothing else. So I'm happy to answer questions. I actually am more excited to hear from Daniel Harmon than listen to myself talk. So I'm just going to go ahead and end. And if you guys have questions for me later, we can talk after, okay? All right. Thank you.